just said, my name is Sangeeth Sudheer. So today I'm going to talk about Vue.js DevTools. So I hope pretty much everybody is aware of Vue.js DevTools. Like who and all heard about Vue.js DevTools before? Like how many of you have used it? Like
The tools,
yeah.
Chrome extension.
Yeah, this is the Chrome extension exactly. So do you guys use it at work? Yeah, cool, awesome. So basically, I was going to tell you that if you're not using Vue.js DevTools already, then you're definitely doing it wrong. That's because it's a really cool application that's built into Chrome. It's available for Chrome as well as Firefox. And it is very essential for your Vue.js development, and it can help you track a lot of bugs that goes on with your Vue.js application, especially if the application is pretty big. This will come in handy a lot of the times. So to get it, you just have to go there and do it. So not using Vue.js DevTools is like having glasses on your head all the time, and then you're still searching for glasses because it's always there. And if you're not using it, again, I must recommend that you use it right now. So why would you need it? So just a brief overview of the salient features. So you get the component view. Okay, so how you wrote your components in the Vue.js SFC files, you get it exactly the same. So you have an elements tab in your Chrome DevTools that gives you the DOM tree view, right? Just like that, you can get a component view. So we'll see that. It also integrates with other community tooling. So if you're using Vuex, if you're using Vue Router, then it has built-in support for all those things. So you can see like how your state is changing or like how the routes are changing. And you even get cool features like time travel debugging. So again, like those of you who worked with React or Vue must have heard about it. So if you're maintaining your state using a state management tool like Vuex, you can actually record your state, right? And you can always go back in time and come forward. So it's very easy to debug those kinds of issues. If you have any issues with state, it's very easy to debug. So it also works with Vue.js. So if you're using Nuxt, it works with that as well because ultimately it's Vue.js. Then one cool thing is that it can also run standalone, and we'll see how that works actually. So you don't really need to install it to Chrome, or you don't have to install it into Firefox. Let's say that if you're working on mobile apps and you're always debugging with mobile phones, then you can actually have remote debugging with a standalone mode. So we'll take a look at that as well. And it is, of course, built with Vue.js. So that's one cool aspect of it. So demo time. Okay, so I have a sample application that I made, just a to-do application actually, and we'll see how we will run it with Vue.js DevTools. Okay. Okay. So this is a sample application. Just you can add some, couple of things here. Eggs. And you can, of course, toggle between like completed and pending activities. So this is a very simple Vue application. So first thing is we need to, if you don't have it already, you just need to just search for Vue.js DevTools Chrome, and you will actually get the link. I didn't come to the internet. So we'll just open it and see. I already have it installed here. So you can see that if you visit any website that already has, that is using Vue.js, this icon on your URL bar will actually highlight, indicating that this site is actually using Vue.js. And if you click it, you will get to know whether you can actually use DevTools to debug it. So sometimes in production mode, they must have explicitly disabled DevTools, so that means that you won't be able to use it. But in development mode, you can actually open it and you can debug with it. So I just opened my the DevTools as usual, and you will actually find a Vue tab here, okay? And this is basically the Vue.js DevTools extension. So let me zoom it. So first thing, we'll just take a quick look at the settings. So you have a couple of options here. So if you're using component names, you can, and if you prefer to see it in Pascal case or like kebab case, you can actually toggle it there if you prefer one of those. You also get dark mode, light mode. I mean, who are dark mode fans here? Like, yeah, I mean, okay, just okay. I thought like majority would be, but okay, I'm wrong. Also, you can display density means if you want things more crowded or things more like loose, you want to see more or less of components and stuff. And couple of options here, time format, you can change it to milliseconds if you want. And some of these things you can actually play with, but nothing great. So this is the component view basically. So here you can see that I get the same kind of experience. If you use the Elements tab in Vue.js, in normal web applications, just by opening your development tools, then you can see that you get the same kind of experience. So as I hover over these things, I'm actually getting like, what that component is. And if you see down here, you can see the data associated with that component. So I'm using Vue Router, so I have a $route property associated with it. And I also can, inspect an element on the page directly if you click on this button. And if you hover over one of these elements, then you can see that it actually takes me to that particular component. And again, props, data, computed, method, whatever is there, like it will all appear right there. So it's pretty easy to debug. You can see right what is happening as you hover over these components and select them. Another cool thing is that do you guys know that if in Elements tab, like when you select an element, you automatically get the reference to that element in a $0 property? You know that, right? So if I go to console, $0 is actually div, that particular div that I selected. So if I go to Vue right now, and as I select these elements, you can see on the right side that there is $VM0 is actually highlighted. So that means I can actually use that reference in console to get access to that particular Vue component. So if you want to if you want to just trigger some of the methods in there, while you're debugging, you can actually totally do that. So you don't have to do any other crazy stuff in order to. So this is very easy, when you're debugging something and you want to see like what is happening when I do this particular change. So that's a really cool feature. So you can see not only VM0 is there, but the surrounding elements are also highlighted in VM2, VM3, like that. So this is pretty neat. So this is probably the most important view that you're going to work with. And like I mentioned, all your props and everything is here. So if you have a large amount of data, then you can quickly filter by just searching here. You can filter, like if you have a lot of data properties or a lot of computer properties, you can quickly filter it through that section. And you can also, like, if you click on this thing and if you select that, you can directly jump to which DOM element is that particular component associated to. So all that is right there. So when you are going to debug Vue.js applications, I believe that I strongly believe that you should start with the Vue.js DevTools, work your way down there and see like if you can figure out the issue right from there itself. Because pretty much a lot of the times your rendering issues are due to some issue with your state, right? Some invalid state. Let's say that you have a time date value, right? And let's say that it's formatted in a bad way, and then you are getting like nan or like invalid date or something like that. Usually you will get that. So you can quickly go down this tree and find like where exactly that issue is happening. So instead of having to go down here or go to the sources tab or doing any sorts of debugging, pretty much you don't have to do any of that with Vue. So yeah, that is one thing. Next thing we are going to take a look at is the router. Pretty much, I'm sure that if you're using a Vue.js application, I hope that you're also using Vue Router. Are you guys, anybody is using any alternative solutions? No, right? So if you're using Vue Router, you get this routing view. So if you click on this and if you change the routes, and you can see that when and all that route change happened, you can see it right here. Right? So this is pretty cool. And this will really help me understand, because usually when you have some complex applications, like let's say that you have a wizard or something like that, and when you keep clicking next, your route also changes. And let's say that for some reason you're seeing some weird thing appearing on your screen, and most probably it's due to routing. And you can see like why what particular route was triggered to cause this particular action. You can see right here like what is happening in your Vue.js application. So you can see here that for me, this all completed pending, right? Whenever I click on these, actually the route is changing. So I associated with that. So if for some reason some asynchronous action is there that triggered a route change, and I don't know exactly why that happened, right? Because that can happen in a very complex application. Route changes can happen from different places. This is a very easy tool for me to understand exactly where that change happened, and not just the names of the routes, right? Not just the names of the routes. Actually, the route path, you're seeing the route name when that occurred, but you also seeing all these, the route. If you analyze the route object, you can get all these information, right? You get path, you get full path, you get params if you associated any params with your route object. You get all these things. You can even see like from where, like from to. So from which route did I get redirected to this particular route? So what happened? What caused that action? So all this information is right at your disposal to understand how exactly router is behaving. Because it's not very easy to, I would say it's not very easy to debug, like if you're using history API, it's not very easy to understand like exactly why this route change happened. So I would say this is a very easy tool for you to understand why this particular route change happened. So this is pretty good. And you also, not only this, you also have this, if you click on this, then this will toggle to basically show you all the routes that you defined within your Vue router. So when you're using Vue router, you actually define a routes object with all the routes that you have in your application. So if you want to see like all the routes are getting listed there, then you can click on it once again and it will show you all the routes that are associated with it, as well as some information about it saying if it is accepting any params or something like that. So you can see that for me, in my application, there are only two routes. One is the root route, okay? And the other one is like the root route accepting a param, right? Those are the only two things. And when I go to the root route, what actually is happening is it is redirecting to the second route with the param of type all. So that is what is happening. So this is easy to understand. So this is a very common case. You might have an application where like your home page is actually redirected to another thing, maybe based on the auth data or something like that, right? If your user was at a particular screen and when they come back, you want to redirect to there. So why did that particular change happen? You can easily understand by looking at this. So this is pretty cool. So far, so good. I'm also using Vuex in this application. It was not necessary, but again, like to show you the features of Vue DevTools, I was using Vuex to store all my stuff. So for Vuex, how is this helpful? So if you come to this particular section, so this is the Vuex section of the DevTools. If you click on this, I can see all the mutations that happened, right? So in Vuex, those who have not heard about this, what do you call this? Man, I forgot. So flow state, what is it? No, state management. What was it? Type of? Flux, exactly, sorry. Thank you. So for these flux kind of state management patterns, you usually have these mutations, right? You have changes committed. So all these, each and every mutation causes a change in your state. And all these things are recorded actually. So you can always, go back and you can, change things around. So it's very predictable in that way. It's a little bit of extra work, but it's actually worth it for large applications. So when I do certain actions, you can see that actually mutations are getting triggered. So I can see every time some action happens which causes a change in data, which is always due to mutations, I can see those mutations right here. So I can understand what exactly is happening in my application as I do things. So when I add new things, let's say that I basically do, I have a function here that loads a lot of data. So let's just call that. So if I come here and I start deleting a bunch of things, okay, I can see these things happening in real time. And if I change one of the states of these things to checked, so you can see the update to do status. And I am seeing exactly like what kind of data was associated with that particular mutation. And if I come down here, you can see there's a load state button, right? So if I click on load state, then I can see what is my current state. So at this particular mutation, what was my store like? What items did it had, like, okay, and getters, associated getters also I can see. So this is pretty cool. So I can really understand what is happening in my application at this particular time, right? So I can see the state at that particular time. So if I go to a different mutation record, then I can see like what was the state at that time. So you can see that items are changing, right? Because I'm deleting items with each new mutation. So you can see that things are changing right there, and you can see that store also is changing. What I can also do is I can come back to a particular state. So if I have like let's say again eggs, and I delete one of these items, and as I click one of these items, you can see the details of it, but you can also see some controls here, right? So if I click on this button, right, so this basically takes my application to that particular state. So at this particular point in my time, there are 2 items in my list, right? And when I reach this particular point, that item was removed. So you can understand like how this can be very powerful to help you understand like what issues happen. Because in this flux kind of pattern, and especially in Vuex, all your data is basically living in the store, and all the changes that are committed are due to mutations. So you always have a proof of like how this particular change happened to my store. And if some weird issues are happening, again, you can always look at this and see like what mutations have caused this particular change to happen. So, and you can always go back and forth to see what was my application at this point of time, what did it look at this point of time. So this is pretty cool, and this is a very useful debugging tool as well. Again, here also, you can search for items if you want, like it will actually, okay, no. Okay, let me try searching for, okay, I think, I'm not, okay, sorry, that was the wrong place. Okay, so let me try to search for some values maybe. Okay, yeah, so it is actually going to filter it, based on the things I entered. So again, if you have a large store, usually you have a lot of properties, a lot of states, so you can't actually look at each and every one of them. So you can filter it to see what is the value at this particular point of time. Okay, so you also have the options here. If you want, let's say that somebody else has actually found a particular issue, and usually if you are using Vuex, all the issues can be tracked to the state, why the state was at this point of time. So if they are using Vue DevTools, they can click on this button and they'll get the entire state in their clipboard, okay? And they can basically send it to someone, right? So this is the entire state, okay? It can be much bigger in a bigger application, right? So you can actually ask them to basically click on the copy state and send it to me, right? I will see like what is happening at this point of time, why was your state like this? And you can understand like why this particular thing is happening. So that is pretty cool. You also have the option to, again, if you have a JSON structure copied, you can actually paste that and that will become the state. And that option is also there if you want. So this is again related to Vuex and debugging related to Vuex. So I hope those features were pretty interesting. You also have, Vue.js DevTools is also tracking your events. So you will have a couple of custom events, right, going on in your application. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you go back to that state?
Yeah.
So there is this download icon also at the mutation, right? Remove total.
So this is for commit. So if you actually went back in one place, right? So if you click on this thing, what will happen is it will cause all these mutations to, I believe, enter. Yeah, all those mutations to get like entered at once. So you are seeing all these separate mutations, right? So it will cause basically all those to be entered at once and like reset it to the base state. So you can again continue to type some of these things. Okay. So when you're debugging, you might go back and forth. You don't want to like go down and scroll and do it. So yeah, actually,
make a different base.
Yeah, that's actually for committing all changes. It was a little bit confusing for me also actually. Yeah. So that is what that is. Okay. Any other doubts so far? Cool. Okay. So this particular view will show you all the events that have occurred in your application. So this doesn't, you don't have to install any Vuex or router or anything for this particular thing. So whenever an event occurs in your application due to a custom component or something, it will show you like the event that was generated, the object that is associated with that event. For example, if I click this, it causes a to-do removed event actually from my custom component, right? So and it will show me like what is the data associated with that. For example, this particular payload is there, which is the ID of that item. So again, this is a pretty useful view, I guess, to understand like what events are occurring in your application, and like again, like if certain behavior is there which feels weird to you, like which is wrong, you can always come to these particular panels. Like if you're using Vuex, you can go there and see. I would say like if you're using Vuex directly, you can go there and see what mutation occurred, right? Or if you're not using Vuex and stuff, you can see like what events occurred that caused this particular change. Okay. So again, this is a nifty tab. So one last thing is performance tab. So you have this option as well to understand like exactly are you hitting this 60 FPS benchmark like when you are performing certain actions in your Vue application. So let me load some data first. Okay. And I'll come back. So what you have to do is basically just click on start. This is just like the Chrome performance tab if you used it before. So just click on start and just keep switching between different tabs, and you can see that it will produce a a graph which shows you exactly what happens like at each and every point in time. So how many frames are you hitting and what and all actions happened at that time. So if I click on this, you can see that what happens is basically route changes only, right? So but if you have other things going on, it will list that as well. So again, this is a nice view to understand exactly like whether you're hitting that performance goals that you have. If you set any performance goal, especially if your application is feeling slow, what you have to do is just open this tab, just click on start, just perform that particular action and see what is happening. And this will actually give you like indication of which method is taking time. And instead of this graph view, you can actually switch to this component view to understand which components are taking the most time to render. So most probably, for example, in that particular case, when I'm switching tabs, actually that entire thing is getting destroyed, and you can see that the list view is getting generated again. So probably I can do some optimization around that time to hit that 60 FPS benchmark maybe. And this is like 200 to-do items. I mean, I don't know if everybody will have like this many to-do items, but let's say if they do, like what can we do? Maybe we can like have an intersection observer or something and like scroll and show further items, not like generate all the DOM events. So again, like this is a good view to understand exactly what is happening in your application in terms of performance. Like why is it feeling like a little bit laggy? Why is there a jank? So you can actually go here and understand which components caused it and like which actions are also causing it. So again, so this is a very nice view. Again, before hitting, I would say the Chrome performance tab, which has a lot of noise, right? Like if you go to the Chrome performance tab, if you record, definitely you will get all these more metrics than this. You'll get paint events and layout events and other stuff, but it's a little bit hard to understand, right? So maybe you can start with here. If you are using Vue.js application, you can start with this tab and you can see why performance it is there and see if you can figure out from the this data alone. And then if you can't, maybe you have to jump back into the actual performance tab and do some gnarly debugging to understand why this performance it is happening. So again, so this is another useful tab. So let's just take a quick look at once again like overview of what and all it has. It has a components view to understand like how your component tree is being rendered and what and all data are associated with that each and every component. There is a Vuex view to understand like what mutations happen. It supports time travel debugging as well, so you can go back in time and view your application at an earlier state and see like what was at that state at that time. And also you can export the state. This is very important. You can export that state so that somebody who's having some trouble can actually do this and copy the state and send it to you to understand what is happening in your application. There is an events view to understand what and all events occurred in your application. There is a router view to understand like what route changes happened in your application, from which route to which route did it redirect, or however whatever navigation is happening, like how it happened. And also the performance tab to understand why your application is slow or janky at this point of time. So yeah, so these are a couple of interesting points about Vue. So let's see. Okay, so there's one more thing. I was talking about standalone mode, right? So the best thing about this is that it's available for Firefox, it's available for Chrome, but you don't have to use either. Let's say that you are working with a mobile first application and you are constantly debugging with your mobile phone. So maybe you guys are aware that if you are using Android and you have Chrome, you can actually debug from your computer and you can connect it to your phone and you can debug it basically. So Vue.js also supports that. The DevTools also support that. So if you want to do that debugging, you can basically install this global package, npm-ig at vue/devtools, and you will get a Electron application which can actually connect to your remote application if it's running somewhere. So let's see how this works. So I would have to connect to my phone, so maybe give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully this goes well. Okay, come on. Okay. Okay, so we are connected. Okay, so I'm running this application, right? I generated this application with Vue CLI, and like I have it running on my local. I have a local IP as well as the IP that would be available on my network if it was connected, right? So maybe we'll just start this once again since we changed the network, and we'll note what the IP is at this point. Okay. Okay, so we have this IP. So we can access our application by going to this IP as well, right? Open. Okay, so we have it open here. That's okay. So let me try opening this in my phone. Okay, 189. Oh, that, okay. I don't think that might work. But let's see. We can actually, okay, just imagine that I'm using a mobile phone. Okay, I'll just open Firefox for now. Oh, maybe let's try opening Safari, right? I mean, why not? Safari doesn't have DevTools, so this should work there also. So let's see. So I pasted this URL here. So it should open. Come on, Safari. Don't let us down. Okay. In the meantime, let me just, so once you install that package, you will have this Vue-DevTools available in your command line, right? And you guys can see this, right? Okay. So you can just run this just like that, just Vue-DevTools and enter, and that will open this Electron view. So just click allow if it asks for anything. Oh man. Okay. Okay, so and it tells you that you have to add this particular script tag, right? So it needs to know that in order to understand like where you're like how like you're running on this particular port, right? Running on this particular IP and this particular port. So it needs to know that where Vue DevTools is actually running. So DevTools will be actually running on a particular port actually on your network. So so you have to actually mention that. So if you are using like a different device, then you need to copy the second link and paste it in your index.html. So let me quickly jump to index.html here. So you can see that I added these particular lines. Again, I'm not sure exactly whether these two are needed, but it was there in the docs that these were needed. So you have to actually have these variables defined in your window object, basically globally, Vue DevTools host and Vue DevTools port, and you have to mention the IP address. If you are running it locally, then I think you can mention localhost, that would be enough. And also include this script tag. Okay, that's all. And then save your changes. And let's see. Safari. Okay, Safari loaded it. So we are running here, right? So let's see. Is the IP correct? Okay, that didn't load. Okay, let's try the localhost one maybe. Okay, 192 on localhost 880. Yeah, so you can see that I was running on the Safari, right? And Safari doesn't have Vue.js DevTools at the moment. It has extensions, right? Yeah, it has, but yeah, it's not, Vue.js DevTools is not available, I guess. But you can actually run this Electron application, right? And you basically, once you include those script tags and stuff, you will basically see this Vue.js DevTools open here, and you can see that you get the same kind of experience that you're doing. So imagine this. So I was planning to do this on my phone, but again, I'm not connected to the same network, but you can do the same thing. So if you connect to your phone, you have to connect your phone via USB cable actually to enable, if you're using Android phone, it will enable USB debugging. And if it asks for a prompt, you just say hello, okay, and then you load the application in your Chrome on your phone, and basically you will get the DevTools right here. So that was my plan, but imagine Safari is my phone for now. So it works the same way, right? So this is very helpful if you are using Vue.js in a different browser, you want to test it with a different browser, test it with a different device. This is a very nifty tool to understand like what is happening. Again, you don't have to deal with just the Chrome DevTools alone. You can actually use this as a complement for your debugging purposes. So yeah, so those are some of the, I guess, cool features of DevTools. Okay. So one more thing. So this I learned from Rahul actually. Long back he tweeted about it. So I told you that in production mode actually, if you go to a particular website, you will see that you won't be able to open Vue.js DevTools, right? So if we basically go to, let's open Chrome. So man, what was the URL for that? Okay. So Louis Vuitton, they are actually using Vue.js actually. So if you open this page, you can actually see that it's using Nuxt, right? So you can see that you have a Nuxt logo there, and it's saying that Nuxt.js plus Vue.js is detected. but DevTools inspection is not available because it's disabled by default in production mode, right? So if you really want to inspect this website, JS itself. So see like how it works and how it actually hooks into your Vue applications and get the data for showing components and state and everything. So yeah, and the most important bit, if you are using Safari or some other unsupported browser or a different device, install this globally and start debugging if you haven't yet. So thank you. I hope you learned something today. Any questions?
I just want to ask about the RAM usage which is getting deploying it on a cloud. The RAM usage which is happening out there, because sometimes RAM gets overloaded and
for static applications, I would say like you would have to check your web server, like what are you using Nginx or something like that, right? So I think that would depend on your, because how you are deploying, are you using Vue.js itself? Okay, so you basically build the application, right? Ultimately get a bunch of HTML files and JS files, and that's all. You can put it anywhere you want, any kind of server you want. But if you're seeing that RAM usage spike is there, pretty sure it's not related to, you're talking about from the server level only, right? Yeah, just make sure you check like your settings, like see if it has less allocations, or maybe try different servers as well and experiment with that. Me in my previous company, we used to use a server called, it was written in Go actually, and that was pretty fast and we didn't face any issues. We didn't use Nginx at that time, but even Nginx is pretty fast, so
But like,
Yeah.
because we also have apps and web browser, so I'm not towards too much of web, like I'm too much of.
Oh, okay. You are.
testing.
Yeah, so I don't think that would be a reason though, because this is just static files. There's no Node.js or anything running, right? That's the thing. So initially, that's even my confusion I had, but it's just build time. It just converts to HTML, CSS, JS. That's all, and it can be served via any means. It doesn't matter. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Time mapping feature is there.
Yeah.
Is it a feature of Vue.js DevTools? I mean,
Yeah.
Is the application stored the previous stage running in production? Is the application storing the previous stage, or the Vue.js DevTools storing the previous stage?
Okay, so yeah, you are right. It is actually storing the Vue.js DevTools itself is hooking into those things and storing it actually, because otherwise you will end up with a lot of memory, right? So yeah, that's actually a specific use case of Vue, and it won't even be available until you open the DevTools and go to the Vuex tab. So only at that point only it will start recording those changes. And you also have a red button there to stop recording if you don't want it. But yeah, by default it won't happen for sure. So if you want it, like when you open Vue.js DevTools, it starts recording your commits. Yeah. So any other questions? Cool.